So Ramadan Mubarak again to everyone. And I'm sure that everyone's really excited for the month. We have a lot of good plans. And that's what the topic is for today. It's synonymous with change. And what obviously the it's is referring to Ramadan. Ramadan is synonymous with change. And as a reminder, don't forget that the Sahaba, they would look forward. The Muslims, the pious Muslims of the past, they would always look forward to Ramadan. It's not that they were not changing themselves every single day. Every day that passed, pious, righteous people, especially the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, they would always try their best to change themselves every single day. That's why they would make the dua, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan, because you don't know if you're going to reach Ramadan or not. And if you don't know if you're going to reach Ramadan, then you change yourself every single day. But if your intention is that I want to reach Ramadan so I get so many good deeds, so I do so much more, and that I get so much closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then of course your intention is already recorded with Allah Azza wa Jal. And if your intention is good, if it's pure, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you. Which brings us to our first point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, so why change is hard? We're going to talk about intentions in a little bit, but let's just cover this topic real quick. There are many reasons why change is hard. And the earlier you establish, you brothers and sisters, the vast majority, if not all of you, you are youth. You are in your youthful years. So this is one advice which I am going to advise you on, and it will not apply to you later on in life. It's not going to apply to you later on in life. So I hope you're giving it some importance as of right now, because it applies to you right now. But if you think about it and you want to do it later on in life, it's kind of going to be too late. And we don't say it's too late ever in this dunya, because of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he can change anyone. There was a person who became a hafidh within 10 years. And they accepted Islam when they were like 45 or something like that. Non-Arabic speaking, non-Urdu speaking, just English as one language. They didn't speak a second language. They just became hafidh within 10 years of accepting Islam, and they were 45, 50 years old. So we don't say that it's impossible for people to change, but the advice that I'm going to give you, it's not going to be applicable later on in life. And that advice is, the earlier on in your life you train yourself to bring about change, the easier it will be to change yourself later on in life. One more time. Right now, if you have, to give you an example, and to repeat it, right now in your life, if you have a bad habit you want to work on, you may tell yourself that I'll get rid of it when I'm 20 years old. Or when I'm 30 years old, when I'm 20, 22, whenever I'm going to get married, I'll change this habit about myself. You're fooling yourself. And if you don't use Ramadan as a catalyst, as a factor which will speed up your process of change, if you don't use Ramadan as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring about positive change and to get rid of negativity in your life, then you'll keep making excuses for the rest of your life, and you'll keep telling yourself that I'll make change when I'm 40 or I'm 50. But the key point here is, when you are 40 years old and you try to change something about yourself, it will be a lot harder to change than it was to change that habit at 15 years old. So that's the main point. So the first main point is that if you establish the habit of change, so forget all examples, just the concept of changing yourself for the better. If you establish that habit, if you establish that kind of personality, that you recognize something in yourself and you tell yourself, man, you know, this is not me. This is not who I'm going to be. This is not what I am going to be. This habit, it does not belong in my life. And you start to change that about yourself. Needless to say, change is generally hard, especially when the habit has been dragging on for a long time. But it still is going to be easier at 15 than it will be at 25. It will be easier at 25 than it will be at 35. Of course, most of you connected the dots. It's because you've been committing that habit. You've been committing that sin, that bad habit, whatever it is, you've been doing it for a long time. So it becomes a part of you. And to rip it out of your heart, to rip it out of your soul, to rip it out of your psyche, it'll take a lot more effort because the roots have already established firmly. It does not mean that you cannot uproot it, but what it means is that it's going to be harder to uproot. So that is why change is very hard for a lot of people, because as a habit, your brain begins to function off of triggers. So when you commit a sin, or even if you do something which is a good deed. So you read the Quran. One day you're reading the Quran and you begin to cry. You know, subhanAllah, some people, they read the Quran with so much heart, and they have such a hard time understanding the Quran because they don't speak Arabic and the English is kind of old school, whatever translation they have. SubhanAllah, some people, they just begin to cry because they just realize that these are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they are reading. So that's a trigger right there because you feel good. Okay, so speaking of change again, now we're talking about triggers. Imagine somebody's reading the Quran and as they're reading, they begin to cry. Especially when you're reflecting on the Quran. And when that person begins to cry, they get a good feeling. And that feeling is not just in the brain. We have to understand the feeling of crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making sajda to Allah azza wa jal, raising your hands, reading the Quran, asking Allah for His rahmah, for His forgiveness, making istighfar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are feelings of the heart. These are feelings of the soul. So of course the mind and the aql is also affected by it, but regardless, it becomes a part of you as you persist in this positive habit. On the other hand, if you can think of a bad habit, let's say somebody does drugs, they get addicted to it, eats unhealthy food, cusses, they have a dirty mouth, they keep on cursing, it becomes a part of their life. So either way, a good habit or a bad habit, whatever example you want to use, moving on with this, with whatever example is in your mind. But I'll use the Quran example. So as this person is connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they cry. The next time, all they have to do, all that has to happen is they see the Quran or they think about the Quran. And in their minds, there's something called a trigger. And it triggers their brains send signals to their hands to pick up the Quran. If they don't have the Mus'haf, then their brains send signals to their fingers to close that app or to press the home button and then go to the Quran app and to open up the Quran app and to read from it. Because it's not just about the neurons that are connected, even though that is what I'm referring to. I'm talking about the brain sending signals. But it's about what the heart feels when the heart feels good. And the Prophet ﷺ, that's what he said in the hadith. He mentioned to us that when the heart feels content, then you know that that is something that is permissible from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas when it feels uncomfortable, when the heart feels like there's something wrong, then that thing is probably a signal, and I'm paraphrasing the hadith, then that is probably a signal that something is haram. So inshallah, to wrap up this first point and to summarize, one of the main reasons why change is hard is because we persist in a habit. And when we persist in a habit, we end up getting triggered. Now, in common terminology today, triggered means you get angry, but that's not what I'm referring to. Psychologically speaking, when you are triggered, you see something happens to you, something upsets you, or somebody makes you mad. Your body, your brain, your heart, you as a human being, you have no choice but to curse, because that's your knee-jerk reaction, because that is the habit that you have established in your life. And because it's the first of Ramadan, wa alaikum assalam, because it is the first of Ramadan, it is a perfect time again to reflect on your bad habits and to work on your good habits. Another reason why, moving on to the next point, another reason why change is very difficult is because I took this ayah from Surah Luqman, in which somebody's microphone is unmuted. If you can please keep it muted, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Luqman, He tells us that when it is said to them, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ, it is said to them to follow what was revealed, أنزل Allah, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed, to follow that. What do they end up saying? قالوا بل نتبع ما وجدنا عليه آباءنا. No, rather what we are going to follow is what we found our fathers upon, عليه آباءنا. What we found our forefathers or our fathers to be upon. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He asks them, even if shaitan was inviting them, أَوَلَوْ كَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ يَدْعُوهُمْ, from da'a, even if shaitan was inviting them to a painful punishment, إِلَى عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ, or the punishment of the blaze or the fire, the nar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. Ameen. So it's a very rhetorical question. The obvious answer is no. If shaitan is calling me to the hellfire, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm not going to do what shaitan is telling me to do. The shayateen are locked up right now in Ramadan. However, not all of the shayateen are locked up. Okay, but in general, the shayateen that incite you constantly, especially the shayateen that call you towards major sins, those shayateen are locked up. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, He asks the rhetorical questions. He says, even if shaitan invites you to a painful punishment or a punishment of the blaze or the hellfire. And so people say, what do they say over here? If you can see my mouse, sometimes that option, I unclick it by accident. If you can see my mouse, can somebody just let me know on the group chat? Can you see my mouse? Somebody said, yeah. Okay, yes. Jazakumullah khairan. So over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, they say, nattabi'u, we will follow, ma, what, wajadana, what we found, aba'ana, our forefathers to be alayhi, upon. Whatever we found our forefathers to be upon. In other words, tradition, culture. When it comes to change, there are a lot of people who follow culture. And he doesn't, the person, they don't understand that Islam is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not from a certain land. If people can stop typing on the group chat and distracting other people so that we can focus, I'd really appreciate it. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you. Okay, so again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says it's told, they're being told to follow what Allah has revealed. But they're like, no, we're going to follow what our fathers were upon. So not only habits, not only triggers, we talked about from the heart's perspective, from the mind's perspective, and also how it's so hard to get rid of a bad habit because it takes root in your heart. It's so hard, but also because of traditions. Now, this has nothing to do with habits, okay? Try to understand the second point here. The point is that some people are part of families. And it's unfortunate, but I have to say this. Some people are part of families. Their fathers, their mothers, their older brothers or sisters or uncles or aunts or whoever it is that they looked up to growing up and probably still look up to, they are involved in bad habits. A very common example could be cigarettes, and now vaping is more common. People got jewels in their pockets and their parents don't even know, and it's so common. And some people are smoking, some people are doing drugs and all that stuff. They find out that their fathers smoke, or someone in their family they look up to, and they smoke or something like that. Now, I know I have loved ones who smoke. Okay, so I'm not pointing anyone out, nor am I putting anyone down, because everyone has their own habits. People commit sins in different ways. Everyone's on a different level. We don't know. We help people up. We don't push people down. Okay, so that's the base rule. We help people up. We don't push people down. However, as a rule in Islam, smoking is wrong. So to use that as an example, sometimes it affects people. And when you tell them, listen, man, like something is wrong. The way you are doing ibadah, or the way you are praying, or what you're following is bid'ah. It's innovation. It's not within Islam. Or you know what? The way you're pronouncing this is wrong. This is not how you pronounce it in the Quran. And some people immediately what they say is, well, my father or my grandfather or my mom, she's a sheikha, she's this, or she's so knowledgeable. He's so knowledgeable. We come from a background of scholars in some land in the Muslim world, somewhere, somehow, from some time, centuries ago. We come from a very esteemed scholarship background. So who are you to tell me what to do? But the point over here is exactly over here. When it said to them, ittabi'u ma أنزل الله. It's as simple as that. Follow what Allah has revealed. And so these people will come up with excuses and they'll say, but you know what? You don't know what you're talking about. But you tell them, look, akhi, this is from the Quran, this is from the Sunnah. So because it's such a cultural habit, because it's such an establishment in their lives, they don't want to change. They're not going to want to change, because for them, what their father says to them is wahi. It's like revelation for them. Wahi is revelation. For them, it's what their mother says is wahi. And they cannot question their mother or father. Now, just a little side note as an advice, brothers and sisters, when you grow up, please do not become like dictators in your house, where you tell your kids that it's my way or the highway because I said so. You are wrong and I am right. I don't care what evidence you bring to me. Please never become like mothers and fathers like this, okay? Because that is what is going on in a lot of parts of the Muslim world, where people say that because my father said so, because my mother said so. While we do respect our mothers and fathers, we always take the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sunnah of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, over and above the command of our mothers and fathers. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, do not obey them if they tell you to commit shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He says to accompany your parents, to spend time with your parents, to love your parents, to respect and to obey your parents. But if they tell you to commit shirk with Him, if they tell you to do something that goes against what Allah commands, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا, simply do not obey them, but show them all the love, all the respect. وَصَاحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا, Allah says, but accompany them in this world in goodness and with good manners and with good character. So don't, even if they're telling you to commit shirk, do not disrespect your parents. Okay, so that's one aspect of this ayah. So that's point number 2. Point number 2a. Now point number 2b is also just speaking about the bad habits of your parents. We use smoking as an example. Another example is also, unfortunately, the tradition, or I should say the habit of watching things that are wrong, listening to things that are wrong, doing things that are wrong in the house, saying things that are wrong, not praying, these types of things, just a typical lifestyle of a Muslim family that is not too religious. Or I shouldn't say too, I should just say religious. Even like slightly religious means that a person prays 5 times a day. Even a sinner, if you want to be considered a Muslim, you pray 5 times a day. And again, don't point fingers and call somebody a non-Muslim, but the base rule is, if you abandon the prayer, if you abandon the salawat, the 5 daily prayers, then that person is practically, they are planning to abandon Islam. Okay, so we're going to move on, inshallah. A lot of things, they are inherited. A lot of bad habits are inherited, so that's why it's hard to change. The other reason why change is hard is because we establish bad habits. It becomes a part of who we are. So getting rid of that is going to be difficult. Moving on to the next slide. And this will be the last point when it comes to why change is hard. Fear and uncertainty of the unknown. So we spoke about the past. We spoke about, okay, what has been going on so far in the person's life to the point where now it's hard for them to change. But let's talk a little bit about the future and why it's hard for people to bring about change. You see, you have experienced relatively fewer Ramadans than most other Muslims in the world. You have experienced, or at least the adults, right? You have experienced fewer Ramadans. And for you, it's easy to say, man, the next Ramadan, I might change. Right now, though, you may have some habits. You may indulge in certain types of sins. And as you're indulging in those sins, you ask yourself, well, if I change, what's going to happen to me? And I'll give you a perfect example, which I get from the youth all the time. When I was in all the different states that I lived in as a youth director, this was a question that I would always get from the youth all the time, many different ages. The youth would say, that if I change, or if I begin to change something about myself, what happens is that the people call me a hypocrite. And I don't know what to do about that. I just don't know, should I even change? This question, actually, I got this a few days ago from a beloved brother of ours in the community, a young brother. And I've got this question maybe over 50, 70 times from different youth. all over the communities. So this, I don't know, what would you say to this brother or sister? If this brother or sister, you can unmute yourself or you can type it in the group chat. So let me pose the question one more time. What would you say to this brother or sister who is trying to change? A sister, she says that I want to start wearing the hijab, but the people are going to say I'm a munafiq, I'm a hypocrite because, you know, I listen to music or I talk to guys or I do something that's wrong or blah, blah, blah. So she'll find excuses to not change one aspect of her life. A brother will say, you know, akhi, if I begin to pray, then the people are going to say I'm a hypocrite because I curse all the time, and the things I listen to, the things I watch, the things I say and talk about with my friends, they're just going to say I'm a hypocrite. So why even pray? Like, what's the like, if I pray, then that's the fear of the uncertainty. I don't know what people will say about me. Okay, so go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to, or raise your hand so that if you want to speak. I would prefer you speak before I go ahead and read in the group chat. Out of 100 people, not a single person is going to unmute themselves. Come on, let's hear from someone before I pick on you. Okay, so Jude, let Jude go first. Okay, let Jude go first, and then Khadija, if that's Khadija. Okay, go ahead, Jude.
I would say to ignore the people who call you hypocrite or whatever. Just do what you want to do.
Okay, so ignore them. Ignore the people who call you hypocrites. That's a really blunt and straightforward answer, and that's pretty much what you guys and girls should be thinking about. Okay, before I read from the group chat, let's get another person to unmute themselves and go ahead. I think Khadija had her mic unmuted. Zoha, go ahead.
You should ignore them.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you should ignore them. Okay, Rayan, go ahead.
You should maybe stop what you've been doing, like stop listening to music and that stuff and stop cursing.
Okay, that's a really good point. That's kind of an obvious point. It's so obvious that I didn't even think about it. Okay, so the thing is, that's a really good point. You should maybe stop doing the things that people are going to talk about. But again, like others said, don't stop it. Don't care about what other people are saying. So don't stop it just because other people are going to say this and that, because then your whole life, you're being governed, you're being ruled by other people and their belief about you. So Zoha, I'll get to you in a second if your hand is up, unless that's an accident. But the point about changing yourself now, Rayan, the thing is, you'll never become perfect. You'll never become perfect. And even if you get rid of those habits that you fear that, people are going to say I'm a hypocrite because I do this, you may get rid of those habits, but A, it might not be easy. What if it comes back? And B, what if you establish other bad habits in the future? Then some people are going to be like, well, you're a hypocrite. They'll talk 20 years from now. I'm, as a youth director, people talk about me. Like some people talk about me. I'm not going to say who, what community, where, how, relatives or not, either way, people talk about me, and it should not bother you. So going back to the original point of some people, going in circles, don't care about what other people say about you. Care about what Allah says. Okay, go ahead.
I'm eat trees.
You eat trees? What do you eat? It's Ramadan, so refrain from eating. But Hanan, go ahead. Go ahead, Hanan. You're unmuted. Go ahead. So somebody said that's facts, Hanan, and I didn't hear anything. Did you guys hear Hanan? Okay, never mind. Man, you guys gotta stop goofing around with the Zoom stuff. Okay, I will go up and read some of the points that you guys mentioned. So please do not type. Please do not type. Please do not type. I'm going up. Okay. Eat trees. It's your intentions that matter, and ignore them. So Yunus Jima said it's your intentions that matter. Ignore them because they can't judge you. Okay, so good point. So people can't be judging you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judges you. There's a difference between advising and judging. Okay, so never, just a little bit of a note for everyone. There's a difference between advising and judging. So never, Khadija, your mic keeps unmuting. Okay, so Rida said, it's your choice. Don't care about others. Care about yourself. And then Sanila, only worry about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thinks, not what other people think. Thank you so much. I was about to finish up this point with exactly that point. Okay, get away from the people pressuring you not to change to good. Check out my live stream. Can you please stop? You should ignore them and don't let anyone judge you. It's your choice, and it's best if others care about themselves. It's your intentions that matter. And I would tell their friend to change, and it doesn't matter, just put on your scarf. You should get away from the people who say this. Okay, so really good responses so far. Thank you so much for all the input. And pretty much, you guys have the right mentality. However, I wanted to say that it's not easy. The understanding that other people judge me and other people are going to say stuff about me, that never goes away. And I'm going to make something clear over here. You should not care about what other people think about you. You should only care about what Allah thinks about you. What I just said is very easy to say. But over time, any human being, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what people said about him, it started affecting him. So as a human being, what other people say and think about you, it does matter. I should actually focus more on what people say about you. But whereas what people think about you, you see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He calmed down. He assured the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he will be successful. And Allah subhanahu, and this is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he needed assurance from Allah. So by extension, you and I as Muslims, we have assurance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we all know that if you care about what Allah thinks about you, eventually you will grow up. No one is saying to put your reputation at stake, but take care of your reputation. Don't walk around stinking and cursing and like not taking care of yourself. I don't care about what people say about me. No, take care of your reputation. Take care of your appearance. Don't be extra in any regard in life, but always concern yourself with, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala think about me? We'll wrap up this slide by just reading a few of these points. Ignore them to the best of your ability. Okay, Sophia said, if you want to change and be good, then change and be good. Don't let anyone say otherwise. That's a really good point. And again, no one will be perfect. It doesn't matter what bad habits you have. Let's say you have 10 bad habits in your life. Okay, the only way that you'll get to 0 is by reaching 9. And then 8. You don't go from 10 to 0. And of course, once you get to 0, you will not be perfect, but at least you won't have like haram habits in life, if you know what I mean. So the only way to get to 8 is by passing 9. So go from 10 to 9 to 8 to 7. If you're at 5, like you've gotten rid of 5 bad habits in your life, but you're still at 5 bad habits in your life, people will talk. And so you have to be really shallow to listen to these people and go back up to 10. So keep working your way down, especially in these blessed days and this blessed month. Habiba said you should do more research about it if you want to wear hijab and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it. Muhammad, can you stop requesting remote control of my screen? I would appreciate it. So Habiba said you should do more research about if you want to wear hijab and how Allah talks about it. And if you're fully convinced, you won't care about what your friends say. That's also another way to bring about change, is by not being ignorant. So somebody may say something is haram or something is mandatory, and you're like, nah, I don't believe you. Well, do your research, ask somebody knowledgeable. Ruba said it doesn't matter. I'm sorry if I'm ruining somebody's name pronunciation. It doesn't matter because it's all about your intention. That is not the meaning of being a hypocrite. A hypocrite, munafiq, is someone that is something from the inside and something else from the outside. Thank you so much for your responses. No problem. Okay, Jazakumullah khairan everybody for the responses. Moving forward in this Ramadan series, if everyone can please keep the group chat discussions to a minimum. I appreciate all the excitement and everything. They're like it's fluctuating between 95, 101, 102 participants. We have a lot of people. when 2 or 3 people write, it's distracting. So imagine when 10 or 15 people write. So everything that I read, thank you so much everyone for doing the input and stuff, but like useless things, like please refrain from it. And also let's bump up the participation, especially on the microphones. Raise your hands, I'll call on you, and then you can unmute yourself, inshallah. But overall, you guys have been great, especially with like almost 100 people. I really appreciate it, keeping your mics muted and everything. Moving on, we have about 10 minutes, inshallah. Gonna wrap it up. Okay, Bismillah. So next slide, next point. I just want you to take a quick look at this picture. I talked about how some people say that we will follow what we found our fathers to be upon. However, some people follow what they find their people to be upon. Whatever the people are doing in society, whatever the people are doing in the community. You know, if a brand, if everybody's talking about a certain brand of, let's say like a purse or clothes that people wear, certain cars, and they make fun of you for driving a certain car, especially happens amongst the youth, and what type of watch you're wearing or your accent that is a big deal for some people. They have accents, and you know, it's a big deal because people make fun of their accents, people make fun of their color, people make fun of what they're interested in and what they do. If you go to public school, people make fun of your religion, they make fun of your background, your culture, your language, your parents, they make fun of you. So there is this need in your mind. As a human being, we are all concerned about fitting in, and that is why change is hard for many people. And I would actually wager most people, vast majority of the people, change is hard because of what people are doing around them. And this word normal, what is you're not normal, bro. Listen, you guys on this group chat, on this Zoom presentation, you guys are 1% of America. So just deal with it. You guys are not normal. Who prays 5 times a day to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in America? Who prays 5 times a day? Amongst all the Muslims, so amongst all the 1.5% of Muslims in America, how many of these Muslims pray 5 times a day? Think about the statistics, think about the numbers. So like, right, you guys already, you can conclude easily that you're not normal. But just because you're not normal, it doesn't mean that you are dumb. It doesn't mean that you are below average. Whereas the 1%, I'm not talking about people who have a lot of money. I'm talking about people who are like the smartest people in the world, 1%. People who are the strongest people in the world. People who are the most fit people. The nicest people in the world, who are the most generous. They are exceptions. They are exceptions. So if they are 1%, if they are 2%, if they're 3%, and somebody says, hey, you're not normal. So if, let's say somebody's really into fitness, they eat healthy, they work out, they take care of their bodies, they're not worried about aesthetics, they're not worried about looking like a model, fake Photoshop looking magazine cover dude. They don't worry about that stuff. All they care about is, I want to live healthy, I want to eat healthy because I want to feel good. And I want to look good for my spouse, okay? Everybody wants to look decent, okay? So nobody's trying to like show off, but people who want to live a healthy lifestyle, they at least want to look decent, and they want to look good for their husband or wife. So that person is like plastic. Yes, thank you, Amir. So that person is like, you know what? I'm going to be so healthy. I'm going to work out. I'm going to go like not crazy, not extreme, but they're living a good, healthy life. You give them something unhealthy to eat. You go to McDonald's, you go to Taco Bell or something. They're like, no, I'm good. I don't want to eat this stuff, you know. It's so easy for someone to say to them, you're not normal. So does that mean that that person is like thinking in their minds, oh, you know, I'm not normal, so I guess I got to stop working. I got to stop eating healthy. I'm not normal because people are not accepting me for who I am. First of all, look at the circle of friends that are hanging out around you, who are hanging out with you. Why are you hanging out with them if they're trying to dissuade you, discourage you from changing yourself for the better? Secondly, why do you care about what other people are saying about you when you know how you feel when you work out? You know how you feel when you eat healthy versus how you eat unhealthy. So at the end of the day, you are living for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your life is your life. It's not someone else's life. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment, the same people who are calling you towards things that are haram. I'm not talking about Taco Bell or something, okay? So think of any other examples. Okay, somebody gives you weed, somebody gives you something haram to smoke, to drink, girl asks you out, guy asks you out, you're doing things that are haram, and you think that, you know what, if I don't say yes to him, or if I don't say no to her, or if I don't say yes to her, then, you know, she might spread rumors about me, he might spread rumors about me, or he might talk, or they might think that I'm weird because I don't date and I don't go out and I'm like one of those religious nuts, and all of that stuff will pass through your brain. It'll pass through your mind. And there's shaitan also, who is, for the most part, he's locked up. The shayateen are locked up. But during the rest of the year, the shayateen are there to whisper to you. And they're going to tell you to go ahead and smoke that. Go ahead and say yes. Go ahead and add her back, or add him back, follow back. It's okay. Like their picture too. Go ahead and comment with the little cute emoji. They're going to keep on pushing you. Shayateen will keep on pushing you towards things that are wrong. And they'll keep on pulling you away from habits, from deeds, from actions that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So live and die for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not live and die for the sake of this world, because this world is temporary. And when this world is over, there's no one who's going to be there for you on the Day of Judgment except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam will pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you. Okay, 4 more minutes. One of the most quoted ayah in the Quran, at least by me, inna Allah la, or part of the ayah, inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Now I know for those of you who attend my khutbahs, for those of you who have been attending my quarantine classes and all of these things over the past month or so, or a month or so, then you know that I've quoted this ayah many times. But I am in love with this ayah, and I'm like just pause, and guys, please stop. I need you to pause and think about this ayah, because for me personally, for me, this ayah, it changed my life. It changed my life, because you're thinking of all sorts of excuses, and excuses sound best to those who are making them. I am telling you, after so many years on earth, when I tell someone to do these many push-ups, when I tell someone that you can read the Quran with tajweed next year, you can memorize these many ajza by next year, and when they say, but I have school, and I have homework, and I have practice, and I have family, and I have, when these excuses are sounding amazing in their minds, in their brains, once you establish these excuses, they're there. They're justifications for you. Whereas other people, when they're calling you towards good, so that we talked about bad company. Speaking of good company now, when good company, when good people, good friends, they're calling you towards the masjid. When you say something like, oh no, I got homework, man. I'm just so much homework to do. Okay. You are making excuses. For those people, they look at you and they're like, okay, you know, and I'm not saying that they're judging you or anything. Okay. But after a while, it becomes pretty obvious. It becomes pretty obvious that when you're making these excuses, they sound good to you in your brain. So when you make these excuses, you say to yourself, I don't want to come to the masjid. I don't want to come to the youth group. I don't want to come to the halaqah. I don't want to come to the salah. I don't want to read Quran. I don't want to give up on this bad habit. I don't want to stop playing these video games. I don't want to stop eating this. I don't want to stop doing that, because in your brain, you have some sort of excuses where it justifies it for you. Whereas other people are looking at you, they're pitying you, and they're saying, man, if only that brother or sister would stop making up excuses in their minds. It's like you put up a roadblock for yourself. You put up a wall for your own self. You know, sometimes it actually takes effort to come up with excuses, and you're wasting that effort. You know, there's a certain amount of brain power that you have. And I know there's debate whether willpower fluctuates or not, whether it's there, whether you can increase it, whatever. But generally, it takes effort in your brain to come up with an excuse, especially if you have to justify it to other people. Oh, are you going to read the Quran today? You know what? It's Jumu'ah. it's Friday. Did you guys read Surah Al-Kahf? And somebody says, hey, you want to read Surah Al-Kahf together? Hey, how about the next 30 minutes? We read Surah Al-Kahf. And you're like, no, I don't got time, man. It takes 30 minutes. Okay, what about read half of Surah Al-Kahf? Establish a habit slowly over time. And they're like, oh, I got homework and like I didn't do it. Well, you already made excuses. You put up roadblocks for yourself. Between you and change, you put up roadblocks against yourself. You're harming yourself. If you use the same amount of mental energy, in the positive direction. So in the negative direction, you're like thinking of all excuses to give to everyone, from your teachers to your friends, to your imams, to your youth directors, to your parents, everyone who's calling you towards good, you're coming up with excuses. If you use the same mental energy to convince yourself and to tell yourself to be quiet once in a while and try to digest the advice that other people are giving to you, you'll go in the positive direction. And you're actually going to begin to change bad habits that are in your life, that are plaguing your heart, that are plaguing your mind and soul. You're going to begin to change some certain things about yourself. I know we reached the end of the time, so I'll wrap up, inshallah. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I've said this ayah so many times. I'm pretty sure a lot of you know what it means, but basically what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says over here, part of the ayah, not an ayah, part of the ayah, Allah says, indeed, Allah does not change what is with a people, meaning the condition of a people, until hatta yughayyiru, they change what is within themselves. Allah will not change their condition unless they change what is within themselves. And again and again and again, along with this ayah, I always say this. I swear to you, when you begin to change for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the bottom of your heart and the sincerity, only you and Allah know. Only, not even your parents, not even your mother can fully 100% say that you are sincere. It is only you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who know your true intention. But when you truly change for the sake of Allah, you begin to read the Quran, one harf, one page, one understanding at a time. You begin to pray one prayer at a time. And what I mean by that is you have to at least start off by praying 5 times a day. Okay, that's the minimum. You pray 5 times a day, you start to change. Every time you want to say something dirty, you want to say something bad, you want to watch something dirty, you control yourself, you hold yourself back. You may think to yourself, it's not going to bring much change if I don't say the F word once. But wallahi, it will. And for those of you who know me, you know I don't say wallah. As a Muslim, you're not supposed to say wallahi all the time. So it's a big deal when somebody says wallahi. Wallahi, it's not a waste. It is not a waste when you hold yourself back once, just once. You tell yourself, I want to really cuss this guy out. I really want to cuss her. I want to send it. I don't even want to say it. I just want to type it. And you type it F, U, and then you type and you send it. When you hold yourself back once, just once, you may not notice it, but you are making a positive change in the positive direction. So I hope that benefited everybody, inshallah. I'm going to leave it off on this slide as I conclude the conclusion that you never know where the reward is. So keep going, keep trying. Don't just give up and say that I haven't found anything yet in my life. Keep on trying for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially during this beloved month to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Change yourselves. Don't be lazing around. One of the biggest advice that I'm going to give is sleep early and wake up early. Bring about positive change in your lives. I hope everyone benefited from this. Jazakumullahu khairan, everybody. Great class, Brother Harith. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from me and from all of us. And keep me in your du'as, keep me in your prayers, my family. And for all of you, I miss you. I really do miss you. I miss the community vibes. I miss the mercy vibes. I miss the ICSGV vibes. I miss everybody. I'm praying for everybody. Everybody stay safe. Hopefully before the last 10 nights, this quarantine stuff is over, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I can't wait for iftar. May Allah protect all of us. Ameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر